The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We are so pleased to have members here from the Senate and the House. Senator Frank Wagner, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Woody. Always.
Delegate Barry Knight, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Woody.
Tell us a little bit about your fish initiative.
Well, it's a Menhaden situation, Menhaden bill that I've been putting in for year after year. You know, sometimes I'll skip a year or two, but we had a big catalyst this year. We had these Menhaden reduction boats, which are pretty big ships, come real close off the coast of Virginia Beach and off the coast of Chesapeake Bay, and somebody started up a Facebook page to try to help the Menhaden. Had over 4,000 likes on the thing and people commenting on it. And I know Senator Wagner, he went when he was knocking doors trying to win election. It was a hot topic from him. So he initiated a forum with Bill DeSteff and myself, and we've had 2 of these forums and lots of people have showed up. So we're trying to take it away from the purview of the General Assembly and put it in the purview of the scientists, which is Virginia Marine Resource Commission. It just doesn't seem likely that the only fish that's under the purview of the politicians is the Menhaden, and we want to get it away and put it in the purview of the scientists.
How much of a resource are those fish to the Virginia economy?
Well, they have been called the most important fish in the sea. The food chain kind of starts at the bottom with them, and if there's not enough of them, then the rockfish and the other fish, they go eat clams and oysters and baby crabs, and it just kind of helps filter and clean up the Chesapeake Bay. So everything starts from the bottom up. So they're near the bottom of the food chain, and it's a situation I just think that needs to be in the hands of the scientists.
Great. And Senator Wagner, congratulations, Chair of the Commerce and Labor Committee, and of course you're on the Finance Committee, among other duties and responsibilities. Tell us about how things are going so far after about the first week of the session.
Well, Woody, it's the typical hectic first week of the session. You're trying to get legislation in. You certainly have a lot of visitors from the district, as well as a lot of folks from Richmond on different issues that are in and out of your office pretty much, you know, from early in the morning till late in the evening. But things have started off well. We've got a good Commerce and Labor docket that we put together. We think we got an organization there. And obviously we're delving into the governor's submission of the budget, trying to come to understand with all the complexities that he put in the budget, and starting to align our priorities on what we think as a General Assembly, particularly in our case the Senate, where our alignment of priorities are for the budget.
What are some of your priorities this session, especially as it relates to your district in terms of economic development?
Well, absolutely, and I think the governor has put a lot of funds into the economic development aspect of the budget. I agree with him. Some of the locations I don't necessarily agree with, but I think overall the money's there. It's in the right locations, but we need to realign it with some of the priorities that we know exist in our area. I mean, obviously right now, all of us talk jobs, economic development during the campaign. It's time we come up and start to deliver the kind of tools that the localities are going to need and to be able to create this. And we have, particularly in our area, have to diversify our economy. We know defense is not going to be a growth market, and we know we have to take this opportunity now to diversify the economy and attract, whether it's new industry, research and development, any number of prospects that we need in our area. Obviously, we have a big initiative for the port this year in terms of upgrading the handling facilities at the Norfolk International Terminal, allow us to move a lot more cargo in and out of the port. We have a lot of great natural abilities and resources, a deep water port, so many things going for us in Hampton Roads. And then obviously we're going to have to address transportation. We have addressed it in the past, but we're not where we need to be, in my estimation, for the Hampton Roads region if we're going to see the economy grow and diversify.
And Delegate Knight, just to follow up on that, there was a House Appropriations meeting which included a briefing regarding the port and also regarding transportation issues. Give us a little bit of a flavor of what those conversations were like.
Well, in regards to the port, they haven't had a whole lot of capital investment in there in many years, and we're a little bit limited on space in there right now. So we've got these containers stacked up pretty high, and they're asking us for a $350 million investment, and the biggest majority of that's going for these big straddle carriers that unload these containers, they move them, they're on wheel gantries and not on rail, and that will give us 50% more container space by virtue of going up in height. So they are asking for a very big ask with that. The CEO of the Virginia port, which is John Reinhardt, told us yesterday that we're positioned very, very well because of the depth of our channel. We can go a little bit deeper, but also because we're able to double stack and get a good portion of our container boxes out by rail, far more than any other port on the east coast of Virginia.
So what's happening in terms of traffic at the port? I understand that the Panama Canal obviously is about completed in terms of its enlargement, so those post-Panamax ships will come through and they will come to the Port of Virginia. So what's going on economically with that?
Well, I think obviously that's something we're all looking towards right now. But some of the post-Panamax ships are already showing up now, and you know, from the Middle East and taking that circuitous
the Suez Canal.
Right, absolutely. With the Suez Canal widening and deepening, that's brought them early to our port. We obviously have that natural advantage in that we're already at channel depths that the other ports wish they were up and down the East Coast. So I'm very, very excited about the prospects, and we need to continue. We have a lead now, but obviously any choke point in the entire system is going to cause the shippers to look to other ports, and traditionally that's been the handling capabilities of our ports. And as we see the facility in Portsmouth, the AMT facility, Virginia Gateway facility they call it now, reaching capacity, then it's important that we upgrade Norfolk in terms of its ability to move the boxes or the containers in and out off the ship, onto land, and from the land onto the ship in a much more rapid manner, so that these ships' turnaround time is absolutely key. 2 days, 1 day, 12 hours at the port. Their preference is as short a time in the port and the maximum time at sea. And the faster we can move these, the more they're likely to call on the Port of Hampton Roads over Savannah, Charleston, or some of the other ports.
What's the function of the inland port? I think it's at Front Royal, Virginia.
Absolutely, and that's a coordinated 2 trains a day, leave Front Royal, dedicated straight here to the Port of Virginia. And what that allows is up and down the Shenandoah Valley, you'll see a number of manufacturers and things that you wouldn't think would be there. Volvo truck plant making all the Volvo semi-rigs. Hershey has a major plant. There's factories up and down the Shenandoah Valley for 2 reasons. One is they can obviously ship to the southeast or ship to the northeast easily up and down 81, so it's a relatively easy area to service both of those markets. But because of the Front Royal Inland Port, they can bring the product in and out either for export or import raw materials into, you know, the Shenandoah Valley basically, and then feed up and down 81 to supply those things. It's been a very, very successful market. We're now looking at perhaps another inland port somewhere in Southside Virginia, perhaps Lynchburg. I know there was some talk at Roanoke, but we're looking for another inland port facility because the one at Front Royal has been so successful. And what it does is gets these containers out, not by truck, to further compound the situation we have on our highways, but moves them by rail.
Tell us a little bit about your background and experience in farming and how important farming is to the Virginia economy.
Well, it's the #1 industry, agriculture and forestry in the state of Virginia is. And the Port of Virginia, we export a lot of agricultural and forestry products, and it was #3 on the East Coast. Now our port is #2, and we're trying to take it to #1. So we've really upped our agricultural exports. But we are very diversified with peanuts to tobacco to hogs to cows to just about everything. We've got such a diverse geography in the state of Virginia, but it is very, very important. And we've given some tax credits to some shavings or wood pellets to export those. And you know, forestry products are sustainable. It isn't like some people think you cut a tree down, it's not going to grow back. It's just a crop like corn, wheat, or soybeans is. So we're very well positioned, and it is because of this port that we have. And We do have, talking about the transportation situation, we have tax credits to try to get some of these containers and truck traffic off the road. We've got a $25 per container, small container, to put it on a barge and carry it up to Richmond up there. And when Frank is talking about these inland ports, we have a place over in Chesapeake now, a designated mega site, and that could possibly be an inland port or a place for great economic activity that will facilitate our port. So we know that we have to get away from the military and try to get more private industry in here, and the port is going to be a great catalyst for that.
So understand, we even export soybeans, for example, to China.
We absolutely do. And they have all kinds of beans. They have beans that they use over there for animal protein when they feed their hogs and their cattle, and they also have these nano beans, which Essex Farms, in Essex County, Montague Farms sends over there, and they eat these beans. They're edible beans. So we find a little bit of niche where private enterprise can make a profit in the state of Virginia, and we go after it.
So what kind of challenges do you as a farmer and your colleagues as farmers face in the Commonwealth?
Well, we kind of want the regulators to get out of our way. We're kind of the original stewards, conservationists, if you will, and we've got a lot of cost share of fencing cows out of streams and best management practices, and we're getting some help doing that, but we're trying to clean up the Chesapeake Bay and do our part, but we just want to make sure that the regulations the federal government, the state put on us are not over onerous.
Talk to us a little bit about energy. You're a recognized expert in that field as well, and I know you've been very active.
Yeah, well, one of the key things is we looked at diversified economy in Hampton Roads, which we all understand we need to do, is the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Very, very exciting prospect. It's under review by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, who is the sole permitting, if you will, authority for this interstate pipeline. It brings gas in from gas that's locked up in the Martica, the Utica and Marcellus shale plays up in West Virginia and Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio. That gas is cheaper actually than the natural gas you see quoted on the stock market in those pages. That would be called the Henry Hub price, which is down in Louisiana. That allowed this natural gas to come into Virginia and ultimately to North Carolina, obviously with dispersing lines all throughout Virginia. Why is that important? Well, natural gas obviously is an energy source that we know. We know we're going to have to close coal plants over a period of time because of the regulations coming out of Washington. The replacement fuel for these coal plants has got to be natural gas. We don't have sufficient natural gas supplies in Virginia to make this shift over. So that pipeline, for one reason, is very important. But natural gas is also a raw material. It's converted into things that we use every day. And to have that cheap natural gas come into this area in really ample supplies into our area allows us to bring in the manufacturers that make those conversions into other products that we use every day. The largest user of natural gas today in Virginia is up in Hopewell, Virginia. It's a Honeywell plant, and they use 50 million cubic feet a day. And they make nylon and they make fertilizer. And so we have the opportunity to take some underutilized property along very deep water on the south branch of the Elizabeth River, bring that natural gas to that deep water and watch what happens. I mean, now that you can manufacture the product and load it directly on the ships that will deliver it overseas opens up, and these are not $100 million, these are multi-billion-dollar investments in these plants. Once we see that, I get very excited about the prospects, of bringing this natural gas in. And then it'll come down basically the Route 58 corridor. As you start to look at the Route 58 corridor, realize there's already high power lines, realize the East 95, Interstate 85, that relative, very close access to the port, very high voltage lines, and now you have this natural gas pipeline. When you start to talk about, as Barry just mentioned earlier, the mega sites down there, and you start to say to yourself, wow, cheap natural gas, Virginia is one of the lowest electric power states in the state. Great transportation grid out to major distribution within the East Coast of the United States. Two competing rail lines, Norfolk Southern and CSX, both have rail lines along that corridor. I'm very, very excited about the prospects of that. And obviously this natural gas pipeline is what's going to make it all come true and allow us to really talk about diversifying our economy in a major way.
Now, you mentioned the declining reliance on coal. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of people without jobs. as a result of that. Is there a way to help those people transition?
And that's tough. This past summer I was out in Southwest Virginia and Lebanon, Virginia, and it is really kind of depressing. Okay, in terms of what the what do you want to call it, a war on coal out of Washington or whatever, despite coal exports are doing, and it's really a two-part. Obviously, the regulatory policy out of Washington has not been conducive to, it's a shrinking coal market, but also the cheap natural gas this country's experienced has really been more competitive than coal when you do the entire life cycle of coal, from mining to burning to then dealing with the fly ash on the back end. Natural gas is cheaper for the utilities to use, and so that two-pronged attack has really put a hurt on what we call steam coal used to generate electricity. But still, this nation is 40% coal reliant, but it has cost jobs in Southwest Virginia. Every year we're up here, we're trying to go the extra mile to make sure we make the investments in Southwest to allow them to help them diversify their economy down there also, because it is something that is coming. I mean, we have one of our major Virginia-related coal companies file for bankruptcy. The employment levels are coming down, and these are $100,000 a year jobs for these coal miners, and it's just, that huge hit and loss in income in that area has really, really depressed the area. So it's important that we understand that as a Commonwealth and do what we can to help them diversify their economy also.
Delegate Knight, talk to us a little bit about our veterans, and of course, Senator Wagner can talk about this because of his background and experience, but I know you have some legislation in regarding those killed in action and spousal benefits.
Yes, it was a very bad situation. It was brought to my attention as his constituent lives near me, and her husband was overseas, I believe it was in Fallujah, and his armored vehicle ran over a bomb, and the fella, it was just a very tragic situation. He probably should have died right there, but with the triage they have now on the battlefield, he just barely did make it to the hospital, and as soon as he got to the hospital, he passed away. We passed legislation a couple of years ago that was permissive, that the locality could give the spouse real estate tax relief. They could totally exempt them. And she went to get this, the spouse did, and Virginia Beach said, we want to give it to you. The Commissioner of Revenue says, we want to give it to you, but the law says we can't. And we said, well, how is that? We passed it, and says, well, the federal definition of killed in action is killed on the battlefield. Well, this gentleman made it off the battlefield to the hospital, so my language is going to be clarifying that says killed as a direct result of wounds incurred on the battlefield. And I heard Senator Cosgrove say it. We have parallel tracking legislation that passed the Senate yesterday, and I believe we'll be fine with it passing the House. And we need to do what's right for our veterans. We have tried to put a couple of veteran care centers up, one in Hampton, one in Virginia Beach, and we cannot get the federal government to cost share with us. So we are now going to have appropriation this year. I'm on House Appropriations. Frank is on Senate Finance, and we're going to build these things ourselves, and hopefully we can get reimbursed for the federal government. But our area has the largest concentration of veterans in America, and we know what they did for us, and we're going to try to help them.
And of course, the Commonwealth has a program, Virginia Values Veterans. Talk to us about the importance of that.
Well, this is one that Frank has been a whole lot more involved in than I have, and I'll certainly will defer to him. But anything that we can do with workforce training to help these veterans get back into the workforce, or anything we can do to indoctrinate their children into our schools. We had some legislation to pass where some of these veterans had kids that were in some gifted programs in some other states. They came here, and Virginia didn't recognize those gifted programs, but now they do, so now we can slip them right on in, because as we all know, the mothers want their kids to be happy, and if mama isn't happy, nobody's happy.
Speaking of children in our school system who are children of military families, how do we handle those children in our school systems? Are they identified so the administration knows the kind of special needs they may have to provide them?
Right. I mean, we keep a census count in our area, and we do the school systems particularly in Virginia Beach and Norfolk, received stipends from the federal government, recognizing that many of these children live on military housing. Military housing is exempt from property taxes. Hence, there needs to be a stipend because there's tax dollars associated with educating these children. They're integrated right into our existing public school systems in Virginia Beach and Norfolk. I, for one, when I was growing up, attended public school in Fort Belvoir as a kindergartner, and then in Fort Hood or Killeen, Texas, as a first and second grader before my father retired from the Army. So there is those kind of stipends. I think as a whole, generally the military students, or the children of the military members, perform as well as other students, and I think that's been the experience. Recognizing that the one difference is, like my children, they went to the same elementary, same junior high or intermediate school, same high school throughout, and that's not the case for the military child for the most part. Like I said, I attended kindergarten in Fort Belvoir. I attended first grade in Fort Hood, Texas. And moving is part of it, and the adjustment.
Exactly.
Particularly for some of these kids where you're uprooting them from all their friends, everything they're comfortable with, and then, popping them into another place in another location where they have to make new friends and do those types of things. And so sometimes there can be adjustment problems with that, but I think most of us that call ourselves military brats, or probably that's what we know, and when you grow up in that environment, that's kind of the thing you do.
And I guess the other element, the other negative element that can occur is a serious injury or death while a parent is
yeah,
away.
and obviously that would be associated, and there's counselors and there's recognition in the school that those things do occur, and very traumatic event. My father, my stepfather, when I started talking about Army bases, my father was a career naval officer, my natural father, and died when I was actually 6 months old. My brother was 5, and there was a certain amount of adjustment. He was attending school in England. I was born in England, and then obviously my mother moved us back to the United States, and the adjustments. But yeah, it goes on, and I think you need to recognize that that's obviously a death in the family, and particularly if a father or mother is a very, very traumatic event.
Virginia values veterans. Talk to us in a little bit more detail about
This is it's a wonderful public-private partnership. I mean, we have tax credits for those that hire veterans and keep them on board, and these is really initiatives, goals set out. Walmart's been a leader in it in terms of ensuring that they hire veterans, but it's very much a growing program. Many companies have joined on and set goals. We're going to try to hire this many veterans or this many veterans, and it's amazing the success story it has. I think it's a recognition by many private companies that we need to do what we can, the extra mile, recognizing the sacrifice that so many of these veterans have done. It was different. When I went through and I was active duty, there really was no war. And essentially, these veterans that are retiring now have been in a continuous war, many of them making back-to-back deployments, multiple deployments, and that's a strain. That's a strain on the family. That's a strain on those individuals mentally. But they have truly made a sacrifice, and I think it's private business and the state do what we can to step up to recognize, the sacrifice they've done. But I think the other thing that I'm hearing from the private companies is we're hiring people that know what 730 means, that are disciplined, that have skill sets that are very much valued by private industry as a whole, and they're well educated, they're well trained, and I think the experience has been a win-win, if you will, a win for the veterans, but also a win for the private companies that hire them, because they know what they're getting when they hire the men and women that have left the military service, and we want to keep our veterans in Virginia. We don't want to lose all those skill sets to other states, and so we think we're going the extra mile here in Virginia to make sure that the veterans have opportunities when they get out of the military here, and more importantly, we want them to stay here, and we want them to continue to be a part of our community.
And what impact will the service centers that Delegate Knight mentioned have on the plight of veterans?
Well, I think the service centers that he mentioned were basically veterans care centers, and I think it's been well publicized, the problems with the VA hospitals. I'm hearing a little bit anecdotally they might be getting a little better, but I think nobody cares. Like the lower the level of concern, the better the care. And by that I mean if we have a Virginia Beach Veterans Center where the state has a stake in it, the city has a stake in it by donating the land, the federal government, hopefully if they step up, has a stake in it, and these are our citizens that live in our city, and we want to take care of them and we want to go the extra mile. That is so much, we hope, a much better quality of care and a much more caring care than a bureaucracy in Washington that runs a major hospital. You're just not going to get the level of concern and care that you're going to get at a local level. I mean, no hospital is going to give you the level of care that you get at home. The closer we can bring it to home, I think the better we're going to be able to treat those that are the neediest, those that have sacrificed the most, that need that care. And that's why I'm very, very excited about the Veterans Care Facility.
Delegate Knight, you mentioned that Senator Cosgrove is carrying the Menhaden legislation over on the Senate side. How important is it to you and other members of your delegation, like Senator Wagner, to work together on these issues?
Well, one thing we are fortunate of is the Hampton Roads legislators all get together. Whether we're Republican or Democrat, we get together, and we know that we need to push our region forward. We know that since some of us have gotten a little bit of seniority, that we seem to be getting our pro rata share of transportation dollars, which wasn't the case in the past. And if we have an initiative that we want to push forward, we think that we're going to get some parity now. We have a situation years ago where we had to BRAC, where maybe we're going to shut down Oceana, and we got matching funds with the city of Virginia Beach and the state to try to roll back that encroachment. That has been a very successful program. Now Virginia Beach has said we don't need to do it anymore because we've gotten awards nationally and the military recognizes this. We've shifted some of those funds over to Langley. Langley says now we're in good shape, we don't need it, and we still got another year or two to go with our outlying landing field with conjunction of Oceana, which is Fentress, and we see we're going to buy some rights to keep encroachment away from there. You know, our biggest employer is the military. We understand sequestration, but we want them to stay as long as we possibly can because the military has been our force. It's kept us out of our recessions for all these years. So we think that with these the region of Hampton Roads legislators working together, that we can make some things happen for our region.
Well, it's been fun as usual. I thought we'd get to transportation, but I think we're quickly running out of time. Thanks for being here, Senator Frank Wagner.
Yeah. Woody, we'll come back and we're going to talk about transportation
Great.
a little bit.
Delegate Barry Knight, good to see you again, sir.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.